heard out of the White House this morning was Peter Navarro, attacking the judges for not being elected. Well, maybe he should read the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and understand that that's the way it's supposed to be.
Well, so we're just going to be watching for the next missive on impeaching judges, I suspect, although maybe not from Elon Musk this time. Karoline Leavitt saying that the White House hopes the Supreme Court will weigh in, Jeannie. That's how this ends, right? This is turning into the Supreme Court show in this administration.
They're going to have a very, very long summer. They like to leave like a school year, have the end, go back home. I know that they'll get much of that. I do think they will appeal this up. I think the question is, does the court take it on an emergency, as an emergency appeal, or do they make it go through a regular order? I mean, that is going to be interesting. We've also got a decision coming out from the court this term on executive power. So the court's role here is, pronounced, and it's one that the Chief Justice has talked about, saying that we are here to set the limits, and it's something that has frustrated the administration. But the reality is that this is really the purview of Congress, and that is the big issue here. Congress has the power to tax. In this instance, they delegated some of that power in emergencies, as Rick was just talking about, to the president. And so Congress can also step up here. But I think about this case, one really under-discussed aspect. This case was filed by small businesses, similarly to the case that just came out where the judge blocked from Illinois, the Illinois toy importers being tariffed. So what we're seeing here is not big companies, the kind that we often talk about, the Coca-Colas of the world, the Adidas, the big companies, rather small mom and pop stores who, unlike the big companies, are not afraid to take Donald Trump and the administration on, because they know if they don't, they are out of business. But in the case of the big businesses, they have the facility, the ability to ride out these storms, and they don't want the blowback from the Trump administration. So it is the fight of these small businesses that's really so fascinating to me as they take it to the administration via these courts.
Well, when we consider that all of this is happening as this administration, Rick, is actively engaged with trade negotiations with a number of U.S. trading partners, this is something that Karoline Leavitt was just asked about in the briefing room as to why other nations would even continue those talks in the aftermath of this ruling. And she says they understand that the administration is going to win. We intend to win. We already filed an emergency appeal, and that they have faith in Trump. But if you're a trade representative from another country, do you take the threats of this president as seriously now?
I think you have to, because there are other tools that they can use. It wouldn't surprise me that later today they'll have the trade rep come out and talk about all the other tools, 301 decisions, 122s. I mean, there are ways that if the administration loses this case, that they can still prosecute a tariff war. And so it is not a threat without teeth. The difference is it's less random, it's not as extreme, and maybe that's even better, right? Put some parameters around the trade war so it's more predictable and less volatile. But you're still going to have to cut a deal with the White House if you're a foreign nation with a trade surplus. I mean, that's really the bottom line. And so wouldn't surprise me that all the negotiations keep going in order to get this behind them, because it will take some time.
Well, who needs the court here when you've got the taco? Jeannie, I bet you heard about this. The taco trade is what they're calling this on Wall Street. Trump, always chickens out. You threaten the tariffs, then you pull it back, and the market rallies. That's Taco Tuesday. We've seen this happen a couple of times, actually. And imagine being the reporter to ask Donald Trump about this. It happened yesterday in the Oval Office. Let's listen.
Wall Street analysts have coined a new term called the taco trade. They're saying Trump always chickens out on your tariff threat.
And if I set a number at a ridiculous high number and I go down a little bit, I chicken out. I've never heard that. You mean because I reduced China from 145% that I set down to 100 and then down to another number, and because I gave the European Union a 50% tax, you call that chickening out?
Is the acronym fitting here, Jeannie? And are you surprised? He got upset about that. Are you surprised he's not in the briefing room right now?
Do not call Donald Trump a chicken. My favorite part of that story was that even some of the people using the term tweeted out to the reporter, Be quiet. Don't tell him, because if you tell him we're calling him that, he won't walk back anymore. So investors not happy with that. Yeah, the poor reporter. I think, by the way, Donald Trump should take this all as a win. He doesn't have 90 deals in 90 days. This isn't good economic policy. He can blame it on this court that none of us ever heard of until the other day. And he can say, listen, I tried, but now we have to just go back and I need to work on cost and inflation. It's a win for him. He should take it. But I don't think it's going to happen because he loves himself some tariffs.
Well, yeah, and he intended these tariffs to also be a way to raise revenue to help offset some of his tax cuts. Rick, in our final minute here, does this actually make that legislative effort harder in the Senate if they can't say, look, we have math to offset this?
Well, I think that the whole tariff discussion about having revenue is more of a talking point than a reality. I mean, there's very little that anybody can point to as to like what is the net receipts of the federal government and how they would apply. And the numbers are so massive, between $2.5 to $3.5 trillion of deficit add-on over the next 10 years. A few hundred million or billion aren't going to really make a big impact in getting votes. They've got a big hurdle in the Senate. A lot of people, Ron Johnson included, have already started staking out pretty tough stances on the massive amount of debt that this bill collects up on the federal deficit. And that's the issue they're going to have to figure out. And they're going to need a lot more than what's currently in the trade deficit category.
All right, Rick Davis and Jeannie Sheehan Zaino, our political panel, joining us here on Balance of Power. Thank you so much.